Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Shane. Welcome to another Habitat Now. It's a real honor to have you join me today and learn more about artist Steve Klein. Steve and I were in contact for a while, and we thought a great opportunity to give a preview of the work he is exhibiting during our upcoming glass tour in Seattle.
What?
He is currently
Yeah.
at in Pilchuck right now, and we're looking forward to hearing about more about his legacy there and how he's been on the board for so long. So, without further ado, I'm going to take over your screen and begin sharing. So, if you wouldn't mind, feel free to mute yourself if you aren't adding to the conversation. So, I think you're seeing my screen. So, if you haven't noticed, we have a Zoom button on our website. If you don't get the email from me or it gets lost or goes into spam, just go to our website, click on the Zoom button on the little hamburger. It's the very first button. You can sign up for our Zooms every week. We try to do them every single Saturday at 1 o'clock, and we hope to continue sharing what we love with the world. We have our next exhibition planned. The Glass International is still up for the month of September. It's coming to a close soon. But in early November, we have a show of Dimitra Thanopoulos and Dean Benson. I expect a whole room full of magical leaves. It's going to be incredible. They're coming from California. They're setting up over Halloween, so if you have a chance to join us, you're invited. Bird and Kathy are right now on a small little trip to Italy in Murano with a couple of couples, just exploring and sharing. It's great to have trips to go visit people we love around the world and see glass. So if you ever want to be a part of this, let us know. The Seattle Art Trip is coming up in October, and it should be a fun one. We've been advertising for a while, so you probably all know about it. If not, contact me. So we picked our dates for the Glass Coast weekend this year. I think it's our like ninth year of doing it, give or take a pandemic. January 9th to the 12th. A lot of people asking me why they moved it earlier. Well, uh, Barbara Bash, who's on the talk today, has her event, and she's bringing in Martin Blank to give a talk. We wanted to jump on that train and be part of the Florida and Sarasota during that time. And it's a lot of fun. We're trying to push the show a little farther away from the international to separate the two events. But look forward to more information from us. It's coming together right now, and it's going to be an incredible time. Plan on being in Florida in January. We have an upcoming auction. Not many details. Hope to have a talk next week about it, but 80 plus works are going to be up for auction. So a lot of historic pieces, going to be incredible. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to offer such incredible things on the secondary market. Before we go to Steve, real quick, I have a price list of available works. Just send me a message, shoot me an email. I'll send it your way. They are just beautiful, and they're it's more substantial than the images. So I'm looking forward to learning about them from Steve. So Steve, thank you for being here today. Please take over the screen and say hi to everybody first. Say hi
Okay.
first.
Well, first of all, thank you, Aaron, and thank you all for attending. For those of you who didn't hear, I'm at Pilchuck right now, facilitating along with another artist, Richard Parrish. We're facilitating a residency here. This is our 15th year, and every year we do this and we invite about 12 to 14 artists from all over the world to come to Pilchuck for 10 days and do things that they wouldn't normally do in their studio. Uh, this year, the theme of our residency is why. And we're asking the question of all the artists, why are you using glass? Why do you make work of a certain size? And why do you use a certain color? So it's a very thoughtful 10 days and takes a lot of people out of their comfort zone. Although being at Pilchuck is very exciting, very alluring, and we've got wonderful weather this year. Um, all
That's
right,
great.
I'll
Go
take
ahead.
over the
Sure,
screen
take
here,
over.
screen share.
We've been showing Steve's work for a long time. You work in the gallery as well. It was great to be able to see his new creations. He's just put together. He just finished one recently. It was that sent out in a newsletter um, right before this talk. So that's it. All right, Steve. Looking forward to this. Let's go.
Okay, do you see my screen?
We do. You're all set.
All right, it says life cycles of a maturing artist, and
Yeah, it does.
maturing has nothing to do with my age, my gray hair, or loss of hair. It has to do with the work. And I think every artist who does work experiences the excitement of their work maturing and growing. So Prior to 1995, from 69, I sold industrial supplies. My background is in engineering, and I work with engineers, selling them different types of hardware for assembly. Uh, but I did start collecting prints when I was about 19 years old. I visited an art gallery and I got hooked on art. And growing up, my dad was an electrician, but he was also uh, a garage artist. He collected junk and did junk sculpture, and our house was always filled with art, and I got the appreciation very early. So, 1996, I came to Pilchuck. It was completely it was an accident, it was a lark. I was visiting a friend in the area and saw a brochure for Pilchuck. And he explained to me that it was a glass school and it was up in the hills. And I took the brochure and went home and talked with my wife. And I said, you know, I don't like work. I don't like my customers. I don't like the people I work with. I really don't like what I'm doing. I need to try something new. And she said, well, you're 50 years old and probably going through something I went through 10 years ago. So go. And I came to Pilchuck to take a class, a sand casting class with Paula Bartran, because at that time it was the only class offered that didn't require an artist statement. And since I had never done anything artistic, I didn't have a statement. Um, this was the first piece of glass that I made. Uh, it was a sandcast piece. I called it Chaos because it was driving me nuts. Being an engineer, I always had control of things I worked with. And all of a sudden, I'm working with this material. It's hot, it's like honey, and it's really not cooperating and doing exactly what I wanted it to do. So I came back a year later and started thinking a lot more about glass and about what I really liked. And my excitement in life has always been sunrises and sunsets. And it's that last moment, particularly at night, when the sun just breaks a horizon line and then goes down. And for me, it's always represented hope for tomorrow. If I see that sunset, I think tomorrow is going to be a great day. And uh, basically, it usually always is. If I wake up, it's a great day. Um, so I wanted to bring that to my work. Um, I started out I became friends with Henry Halem, and Henry told me, well, your work has to be about something. Figure out what your work is about. Don't just make work based on process. So I started thinking about that, and my first piece that was called Confrontation, and I started using spheres as a way of communicating and really as a way of representing me and other people I deal with. And then the stripes came into the work, and the stripes were a way of using glass to show that little last bit of light. Uh, and almost every piece I make has stripes in it. And it's not about the stripes so much as what's between the lines. It's that hint of light, it's that hope, it's a joy. And I think that's the reason I use glass. I started reading a lot about artists, and I found it very interesting. And one of the first artists I started to study was Malevich, Russian constructivist or supremacist. And I started reading more about those artists, and I like the idea of non-representational art, but saying something that was important to the artist. And I had a lot to say, but I didn't feel like I wanted to hammer people over the head with it. I just wanted to share beauty, to share experiences. And so my work started to become a reflection of conversations I was having with different artists. Whoops, let me see here. There we go. Okay, so here's a couple of artists I really enjoy. L. Lissitzky, another Russian constructivist, and uh, that whole idea of non-representational art and using shapes and color or lack of color, if you will, uh, to create some type of a balance. And for me, it creates a beauty. Uh, Hans Hofmann using color, and color was something very, very strange to me when I started the conversations with Hofmann. And so this series, exploration series, it really is an exploration of line, shape, color, and it's exploring deeper into conversations I feel like I have with artists. When I'm using a painting as inspiration or influence, I really do feel along the way I'm talking to the artist, and it's very exciting. And the process, I've always said when I've taught, for me, the process is really exciting. The steps along the way, those aha moments, the ah moments, and finally getting to a resolution where the artist I'm speaking with and I agree that yes, we've completed this. And then once it's done, it's done, and I'm happy to move on to the next piece. So these are current pieces that have been finished in the last, really in the last month. Uh, I'm exploring more about the ideas of non-representational art and using minimal color. The piece on the bottom, Exploration 217, is experimenting with two spheres, which is something I haven't done much of, and it really introduces a whole new idea to the pieces, and I'm pretty excited about it. If anyone has any questions, just shout out or whatever. I'm happy to stop.
I was going to say that 217 piece is kind of a throwback to your one of your early pieces. You had two orbs floating.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about that. Thank you.
Welcome.
It is, but yeah, and by the way, the spheres sit on these pieces. They sit on an O-ring and they can be moved. And to me, it's always interesting when I see them in a gallery or if I see an image of the piece in someone's home. I mean, I photograph it how I see it, but how it ends up, I think is very interesting because a lot of the work is about relationships of, and so how someone else sees my work, I find very interesting. So in 2001, I had the privilege of going to Scotland to Northlands Creative Glass to teach. And it was an amazing place. And on the way there, driving from Inverness, I saw these fields of these round bales of hay. And at the time, I was living in California and I had never seen that before. Anyways, with the North Sea as the backup and these fields, it was very exciting. And I did my first piece that was representational of the landscape and exploring the area there. I ended up doing an entire series of work looking at my experience in Scotland, and these were from the standing stones of Orkney Island, standing next to these massive monoliths and wondering 4,000, 5,000 years, who put them there? Why did they put them there? Who's touched them before me? And it started a whole series of asking questions, but again, looking for balance. In the mornings when I was in Scotland, I would go sit on a cliff.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, was there a question?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. I would sit on the cliffs above the North Sea and just stare and look at the action of the light and the wind and the ocean. And that created a small series of work that I called North Sea. So the shelter series has been very important to me. While the shape has become a vehicle to share a lot of different ideas, it all started in Scotland on a beautiful sunny day when an ice cold wind came up, and there was a group of us out in these fields exploring, and we took shelter in this stone enclosure. They called it a fenk, F-E-N-K. And once we sat down to get out of the wind, it was warm. It was beautiful. We were looking out at the pink ling heather. The sky was blue. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was an experience and a memory I wanted to share. And I came back and the shelter series developed. I'll get back to shelter in a little bit. In 2006, I had the opportunity to have a show at Bullseye Glass Gallery, and that was also the year I turned 60. And I realized, well, I'm a lot closer to the end than I am to the beginning. And that was kind of startling. But I started thinking about, for some reason, childhood and all the fun that we had. And with the memories also came the realization that there were consequences for different things that we experienced. And for me, it was a happy time. I had a very happy childhood, and I started thinking about portraying those ideas with glass and with color, and thinking about the teeter-totter that we had in our backyard, thinking about the dynamics of growing up and children and leading and following and talking and having secret little conversations and clubs. And I tried to portray that happiness using some color in the glass. So that was really the first experience I had using color. A friend of mine was visiting, and at the time, most of my work was black and white and a little bit of red. And we were driving to my studio, and this was a freeway I drove on every day to the studio. And he said, "Look around you. You live in a very monochromatic environment." And I started taking pictures of driving to the studio and where I live. And it's like, yeah, everything is gray and brown, and there's a few colorful signs here. So I started, I think, to get a little more understanding of why I was doing what I was doing. And I found this quote from Louise Nevelson that's some people come on earth seeing, and some of us come on earth seeing color. And I started thinking about that. And for me, I think it goes beyond seeing because I think I feel color. When I'm in a colorful atmosphere or environment, to me, it feels a lot different than when I'm in something very monochromatic. And that's one of the feelings I try to share in my work. So in 2006, we moved to the Northwest, here to Washington. I'm about in a small town called LaConner. And all of a sudden, I was surrounded by nature and by color. Uh, and except for a very rare occasion, I didn't have to get on a freeway again. Uh, the speed limit in our town is 25 miles an hour, and uh, it's enjoyable because I can drive slow and just enjoy the color and nature around me. The skies up in this area are just incredible. And I take hundreds of images of the sky, and I try to portray some of that joy in the glass that I'm making. I think glass is a great vehicle to share nature because of the transparency and the reflections that can be created. So couple of years ago, uh, another artist, Meg Holgate, who's a painter and a good friend, we were offered an opportunity to do a show, and it was like, what do you want to do? And at the time, I was really concerned about the environment and starting to get more concerned. And now it's kind of become what I do. And I think at this point in my life, I have an obligation to say something important. I have grandchildren, great grandchildren, and I know there's future generations. And I'm really concerned about global warming. I'm very concerned about the environment. And I, with the exception of a couple of pieces, I don't think it's my job to hit people over the head with my beliefs, but I do think I can bring beauty to this world and remind people that beneath that beauty, there's some real dangers going forward. So the show A Precarious Edge came to the Museum of Northwest Art. Since then, it's traveled to an art center in Everett, Washington. We have two other museums looking at it for 2025 and 2026. But the idea of this exhibit is through beauty to make people aware of the dangers of what we're facing in the environment. And we've put together educational programs with this because the more kids that we get in to see it, we feel the better off we are. And between the first two shows, we had 4,000 school children come through and see the exhibit. So that was pretty exciting. And to end, these are current pieces. One of them, Shelter 51, was just finished last week. And it's the direction I want to go. I want to look at nature and share the beauty of nature in my work. Again, with the idea that beneath this beauty or behind the beauty, there's dangers that at some point in the future, if we don't pay attention to the environment, there won't be any environment to enjoy.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. It's great to get the stories behind your work and the experiences you've had, and your actual story about how you got involved in glass is really interesting, especially since you discovered it. I loved your wife's advice. Just go do it already. Get out, go. I'm sick of you talking about it. So
Yeah.
I loved it, but it's very fun. I wanted to talk to you about some of the pieces that are available. Just an idea of your inspiration. Looking at the photos, you had these cylinders that were very colorful in the background, inspired by the photographs of nature you took. Is there specific places around your home, or is it at Pilchuck? Where do you usually see the images that create your desire for the coloring in your work?
Oh, yes, all over. I mean, my studio, which I'm thrilled that you'll be visiting. My studio I rent as an old storage building in the middle of 400 acres of farmland, and uh, to the to the east, I face the mountains, snow. I see the sunrise on the east, and then I face west, and I see the sunset. And the area that I live in is very forested. Uh, so yes, I live in nature, and I get up and I see it. I appreciate it every day. Uh, it was I don't know. It was in a way it was a surprise moving here that it would have that much of an effect on me, but it does, and I think it's a privilege as an artist to be able to share that beauty and to share that experience with the pieces that I'm making.
Good to hear. I'm glad they're going to have a chance to come see it too when our tour comes to visit. Tell us a little bit about the scale of your work. It's hard to really grasp. Like people see your work and they think it's like 8 inches big, maybe nine. They're usually twice, almost twice that when you create something.
Yeah, well, this series, the exploration series, normally these pieces measure-wise are between uh, 14 and 19 inches. A lot of it depends on, when I start making the piece, these pieces take me weeks or months to make. Uh, I make big pieces of striped sheets, and then I start cutting them up and start reassembling them. And the beauty about what I do is it's never finished until it's put in the box. At any time, I can flatten this piece out, cut it up again, add to it, take away, put something else in. And I feel like mentally I'm working more like a painter because I can change things. I can paint over things. I can change them as I go along. So I can create what I feel is a balance in the work until it feels right. So the sizes on these pieces, they're going to change with what I'm putting together. And how I shape them is really important. While they all look similar, I can tell you they're all very different. I basically create a mold for each piece. Uh, and like I said, they look similar, but they're all very different. How the edges, whether they're high or low, the differences are subtle, but they're there. And the feeling I want to create is that the sphere without the base piece is just a ball. And the base piece without the sphere is basically a wonky plate. But when they're put together, they create harmony, they create a balance, and for me, they create something very exciting and something I can look at. I can move the sphere and change the way it looks.
It's always fun to see like when the two different styles come together and match. You rarely see that where you see someone who works in a plate design and a blown design. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a
I
little bit
think,
of, go ahead.
yeah, I think part of it, using the spheres, I mean, for 25 years, I was in sales, and it was constantly getting along with people, negotiating ideas, discussing, making things right, because, unless someone felt right about something or right about the product I was trying to sell, we didn't have a sale. So I think negotiation has always been part of my life. Growing up, I had two younger brothers. For some reason, it was up to me to keep the peace or not create havoc. So that negotiation has always been part of my life and part of what I do. And I think these pieces are just kind of a natural progression of that. Although, they're visual, but they are negotiations of line, color, shape, whatever.
With the shelter work, which I'll go back to here,
Yeah.
um, you're creating two, I guess, two panels. And how do you situate them? I've seen them circular, I've seen them next to each other. How do you decide placement?
Well, again, a lot of that starts with models. I do a lot of model making using really paper, wire, and tape. Uh, And, the shelter series started out as actually a depiction of that experience of being in that particular shelter. And since then, it's really become a vehicle for sharing my ideas or experiences. Like this one, of course, relates to the sky. Uh, and glass is such an interesting material that all I have to do with this piece is shine a light right down the middle, and it just blows up with color and with the textures and everything that I put in it. Um, and I think that's one of the reasons I like that shape is that I can put a light in the middle of it, and share that experience with the transparency, with the different uh, colors. You can see through it. You can see through one side to the other, and utilize the shape and utilize the color as much as I can.
Great, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I got one more question for you. So at Pilchuck, how long are you there for now? You just arrived. How long have you been there for?
This is, I think, our third day, and we'll be here for a total of 10 days.
That's great. Well, keep us posted. I'd
And it's
love to hear how it
exciting
comes
because,
together.
yeah, one of the things I like about these residencies is we do get an international group of artists, and maybe some of them are watching this now. But this year we've got an artist from England, we've got one from Wales, we've got one from Romania that now lives in Texas, escaped communism, another one that just came to the US from Venezuela
Oh,
a year ago. And then we've got people from New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., all over the country. So we have these artists all sharing different aesthetics and different ideas. And one of the things we do in these residencies is we don't do finished work. We only do tests and experiments. So the idea is that it's much different than working in your own studio. You're not going in to make a finished piece. You're going in to experiment, learn, enjoy, take risks. We always say for every failure you have, you get 2 points. If you have a success, it's only worth 1 point.
great advice. I like that. Well, thank you, Steve, for joining us today. This
My
video will be on
pleasure.
YouTube, so those who are watching it on the replay, please subscribe and share, hit that bell, all that kind of stuff. There is a price list of Steve's available work. I'm happy to send to everybody. It's posted on our website as well. All the works for this presentation and for our glass tour. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you again, Steve, for being here.
Thank you. And I do have to say hello to Susanna calling in from Spain. So good to see you.
Great to
All
have
right.
you here,
Thank
Susan.
you.
Thank you again. I'll stop sharing and
All
we'll
right.
see
Bye-bye.
everybody next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.